Welcome to my tutorial for Roar of Revenge, and this is for Xbox, PlayStation. I believe it might even be on Switch and Steam as well, but I'm playing on Series X. And yeah, this is kind of like an NES style game, though much easier than most NES games. You have unlimited continues, and you get checkpoints pretty frequently, though some of the checkpoints are a little lengthy and challenging, but nothing too difficult if you're accustomed to these kind of games. It shouldn't be too bad, but it may be challenging for some players. There is two difficulty options. There's easy, which is not what I selected, and then there's another difficulty option that's unnamed. So I just called it hard mode, but you could also refer to it as normal. There's really no label for it. So I don't know what the easy mode consists of. I don't know how it's tweaked, but I do know that the harder mode is really, not that difficult, aside from a few challenging parts that are a little bit challenging. So controls can be a little stiff and take some getting used to, but they're pretty good overall. They're a little sluggish. The character does move a little slow, but if you do crouch, I believe you completely stop in place. So if you have a controller that has kind of shitty diagonals on the D-pad, it can be affected. I did end up switching to a better controller. I was using a scuffed PS5 controller on the Series X with an adapter I have, and the directional pads did, the directional pad on that did make me do a lot of false diagonals and shit. So I just switched over to the Elite, which has a decent D-pad, nothing great, but serviceable. It was good enough for Contra Shattered Soldier on the PS2, so I figured it would be good enough for this. So to start out with, it's just pretty much basics. You can't even jump in the beginning. I thought maybe my controller was mapped wrong, but they don't give you that ability until you get some boots or some shit, I believe. So, just open all the treasure chests. You're going to get these little rings that allow you to open up these pink barriers. And it just gives you some general information in these little tutorial tombstones. And this game took me around an hour and 37 minutes to beat. And the game is around an hour long if you don't die. As you can see here, this is the deaths edited out version, so there's no deaths shown here. The way it's edited is at each new checkpoint, which is you'll see like an axe and some swords, like a weapon rack. That's where the checkpoints are. At each new checkpoint, I edited out any deaths from that point, so the edit is done right at the checkpoint. I didn't try to edit the deaths out in the middle and kind of like splice it together to make it look like a consistent run. I just edited right at the checkpoint, so it's it shows each section being done properly for the tutorial. Now the unedited version shows the deaths and all that shit, but for this I just wanted to demonstrate each section. The reason I edited it like that for this version is because whenever you get to a checkpoint in this game, it restores all your health and magic anyway. So there was no reason to show deaths and shit like that, since a proper run is going to look the same regardless, since it restores all your health and magic. So that's the checkpoint. It looks like a little weapon. Not really a weapon rack, but just a bunch of weapons in the ground. Whenever you get to one of those, you'll start there no matter what. Even if you... Well, this game doesn't even have lives and continues. It's just lives. But, I mean, there's no... you have infinite lives, so... You'll just start at whatever checkpoint you got to. So there's no continue screen or anything like that. And the game also does actually save. Since some games that are in this old style make you start the game from the beginning, even though they give you unlimited lives or continues, they'll make you start over from the beginning if you restart the system, which is usually shitty design. But some of these old games that are on these modern consoles will do that. Old style games, but this one is good with that. You can just go right back to your autosave if you shut the game off. But yeah, this is very easy. Just unlock, open all the treasure chests and go through all the little pink walls that you need the rings for. And aside from that, just take out the enemies you need to and avoid the spikes pretty much. It does help to clear out the enemies before trying to go under the spikes if you can, give yourself a little room, but you can stay ducked under the spikes and they won't hurt you. So, you can just creep slowly through the spike areas by ducking, taking breaks. Some of these checkpoints I beat on the first try and thus didn't really get any practice on them, so some of them are going to be a little sloppy where I barely make it. But that's really all you need to do. As long as you can get to the next checkpoint, you will continue to progress. There's really only a few challenging checkpoints. If you're used to these kind of games, obviously. Now, if this is the first retro-style game that you've played, then, I could see this could probably be challenging if you're new to games in general. For this part, all you got to do is take out the flames in order. So I believe it's the second, the fourth, then the first, and then the third. But you'll know you're doing it in the right order because the flames will... The flame will go out if you hit the right one. If you hit the wrong one, it'll reset the puzzle. It's a very simple puzzle, but you can see what order I did them in there if you're having trouble with that. So yeah, you got some simple platforming here. Just watch out for the spikes. Take out the occasional bird. These will break, so whenever you see these color blocks, you want to just move fast. Luckily, the spikes are not one-hit kills, so there's not even any knockback in this game like there is in games like Ninja Gaiden for NES. So if you get hit, you're not going to get knocked back into a pit or anything like that. So the game is very forgiving. In fact, there's barely any pitfalls in this game. If you die, the most challenging sections have to do with just enemy arrangements, basically, not so much. You don't really have to worry about falling in holes. I think holes will instantly kill you, but there's just not that many of them in the game to worry about. The most irritating stage is probably not the hardest, but the most irritating maybe the swimming stage because it's just a little bit of a maze, not much. But I personally I don't enjoy any kind of stages in these kind of games where it's kind of maze-like. But this one is a very simple one. It's not like that shit in Super Turrican 2 where I did a tutorial where I was completely lost and I just got lucky when I beat that stage. But luckily it's not anything complicated. It's very simple maze, but it's a little challenging because the swimming controls are not great. So it makes it a little slightly, but it's not really. I wouldn't call it challenging, but it's kind of irritating. I didn't really enjoy the stage too much. But like I said, there's really nothing in this entire game that will provide too much frustration, even on this hardest difficulty setting. If you've played these kind of games. Compared to NES games like, Castlevania 3 and a lot of typical NES games, this is a very, very easy game. So with these things, just take them out and, try to avoid the shit that they shoot out. Pretty simple patterns. I thought this was a pretty damn good game for $4, so you know what I mean? I'm gonna give it a review score and review it in a separate video, but I can already recommend it for $4. Now, if it was, once it started pushing like $10 and shit like that, I'd be a little bit more critical of it, because it's so short. But it is fun. But only if you like these kind of games, obviously. So yeah, there's another checkpoint down here. And you're going to go up to that treasure chest at the top, but you got to go around this way first and then come up here. So now that you got that key, you'll be able to get into the gate. Very simple enemies here, though. Just some basic skeletons. The Minotaur is almost like a little mini-boss. But it's very easy. You can see it has a huge wind-up for its swing. And you can just walk away when it's about to swing. So get in a few hits, retreat. Get in a few hits, retreat, repeat. Now, later on, the Minotaur will actually knock blocks down from the ceiling, which it doesn't do here for some reason. And that makes it a little bit more dangerous. But it's very easy by that point because you can just spam magic at it and take it out really fast. So you will have magic at that point. I don't think we've gotten magic up until this point yet, but I haven't really been paying attention to the magic. But I didn't actually watch my own video yet. I beat the game and edited it, but I didn't actually watch it. So a lot of times I'm seeing these videos for the first time, as I didn't review the footage. But in editing, I'm able to kind of go through and see where the deaths are at and just remove them without actually watching the video. So I did just beat this yesterday, but I wasn't really hyper focused on it. I just beat it and that was it. So yeah, just lure these little spike balls to come down and make a hole in the ground and then just jump. Obviously, you don't want to run through this area because then you'll get hit by those things and probably fall in the pit. You can take this out if you want. I don't know that you need to. I don't remember if this is required to open the gate. We'll see in a moment. Oh, okay, yeah, you do have to kill that little bullshit. So this is a little bit of a very simple maze, and I don't even know what I did to get through it. I just kept trying different doors. So this is not the speedrun route. But yeah, I guess I got it pretty fast. I guess it was a very simple maze. But I guess you could follow my movements there if you're having trouble for some reason. It would be good enough. So now you have your first boss fight. I believe this is the first actual boss. But it's very easy. You just have to hit these things when they come down. And eventually it will multiply and you'll have to take on maybe 2 or 3 of them at the same time. But it is very easy. It's already about, a quarter dead or a third dead. So now that all these things come out, just, plan your positioning a little bit. Try not to get mobbed by them. But as long as you keep moving and trying to hit the ones that are available, you shouldn't have too much trouble. I mean, you can take a few hits anyway, so it's a pretty easy. And you get a checkpoint right before the bosses in this game, so you can try that many times as you want, So I forget what you get here. You get some key item. Okay, you get some armlets, but I think those are for the magic, but I think you need to unlock the ability to use them a little farther in the game. I don't think there's any way through those pink walls. I think it's just there for decorative purposes, but I could be wrong, but you don't need to go that way. So they give you some bullshit information here, which most of the time I skip, but I guess I decided to read this time for some reason. I don't think you need to really pay attention to that. I think the game will naturally progress you to get what you need. I mean, it's a very linear game. There's not any extra passages or anything to explore. It's pretty much a left to right kind of game. I mean, there's a few variations. There's a flying stage, and then there's a dragon stage where you play as a dragon. But aside from that, there's not too much variation in the gameplay styles. So yeah, for the wolves, I think you have to duck to take them out, duck and swing. Though I'm not completely sure if you do need to duck, but it works. For those plants, you definitely need to duck. So here, you're just going to do some platforming. Just try to avoid the blobs and jump when you can. You don't have to clear them all out, but there's going to be ones that are in your way, so just take them out. As I said, there's no knockback in this game when you get hit, so it's very, very easy. It's just a matter of not taking too much damage. Some of the checkpoints do get pretty, long and difficult later on, though they become more challenging, but nothing crazy. So here you just have to stand on this pedestal. Get your checkpoint first, but then you just stand on this pedestal. And it threw me off a little bit because what you have to do is just stand there and not press any buttons. So just stand there and don't press anything, and you will fly up to the next area. Now, it may have explained that in the text, but I wasn't really paying attention as usual. So, I did jack around a little bit in that area. So now is your first little divergent gameplay style here where you're actually flying, which changes it up a little bit, but it's super easy. There's really no real skill involved here. Just, move left to right a little bit and maybe take out some of the enemies. I don't even know if you have to kill the enemies, but it was easy enough to kill them. You get a checkpoint right before this part, and with the amount of health they give you, you can take a lot of hits here if you played it really sloppy, so there's not really much skill involved to get through this. It's almost more like a cinematic. But actually, yeah, there's no checkpoint here, so I guess it's good not to take damage on that first part, because this part's a little tricky, and you can easily, take full damage here. I did beat this on the first try, this part, but I could see this being a little tricky. I just mainly tried to keep moving forward and jumping and just, reacting in the moment. I didn't try to sit back and wait. I was just trying to keep moving right. So I recommend trying that. So now you get your next ability. Now you can use magic. And magic is actually really good for certain parts. It does a lot of damage to bosses, and you can pull some bullshit with just out-damaging bosses without even dodging their attacks in a few areas, which I will show. Here you're going to use your magic in these 3 rings, so you press up and strike to use your magic, just like you would in Castlevania with the sub-weapons. So you do have a limited amount shown by the pots on the left upper side of the screen. So there's also a skull icon with a number. That shows how many times I've died. I think I had 45 deaths when I beat the game. Now, based on how many deaths you have, I believe determines what ending you get. So I guess to get the best ending, you have to get a minimal amount of deaths. It might be under 10 deaths or something. I heard about that briefly in another review, but I didn't test any of that, and I didn't give a shit. I was just going straight for the kill, So, but that is something you can do. You can try going for less deaths. I believe there's several different endings depending on how many deaths you have. I probably got one of the worst endings, I'm guessing. I got a 3-star out of 5-star rating, so I don't think that's too good. But I guess I could have done worse. But yeah, for those guys, just duck and strike them. They take a lot of hits. You can use magic on them too if you want. Magic will also usually defeat projectiles as well if you need to clear out projectiles. But it only takes out the projectiles that it hits, obviously. You can't use it on these caterpillars projectile because it's too low. But you can jump those and then hit them. You only have to hit those caterpillars 3 times to take them out. But sometimes you may want to dodge one of their shots if they're facing you. Or just jump over them when possible. You can jump over them. So I use magic on this part. I saved my magic for these guys. That's why I didn't use magic on the first night, because I wanted to save it for the 2 nights in this room. So I recommend conserving it and saving it for those 2 guys. And then you can take them out pretty fast. Otherwise, if you take too long on those guys, they can get a lot of hits in and they can kind of sandwich you in the middle. But it's very easy to deal with one at a time. Just take your time, duck and strike. You can get in usually 2 or 3 strikes before you got to move and reposition. And they do give you enough room to just barely do it. Now this one you have a ton of fucking room, so you're not going to run out of space here. You'll probably be out of magic by this point, but that's fine. As long as you took care of those 2 assholes in that one room, you should be fine. And there was a key that we got, I believe. You can use it there. A lot of times you can jump over the caterpillars and not fight them, as you can see. So this is the next checkpoint. And I believe this one may be one of the trickier ones early on in the game. Though we are approaching the midway point, but we're not quite at the halfway point yet. So yeah, there's a few levers here. Actually, no, I'm mistaken. This is not a hard. This checkpoint's not hard at all. It's just you gotta just open some levers. That's about it. It's not the most straightforward. It's a little bit puzzly, but it's a very simple little navigation you have to do. So after pulling that first lever, I believe you want to go up higher and up the ladder and look for some more levers. I don't even know what all the levers do. I just know I needed to pull them to eventually get through. So, I would just recommend just trying to find all the ones that I hit in the video. You don't seem to take fall damage in this game, so I probably could have jumped down from the ladder. Of course, if you fall into a bottomless pit, obviously, you will die, but there's really not many of them in the game. So, yeah, the only thing you have to watch out with those blobs is that they shoot a little projectile down, so you may want to wait for them to shoot it and then just walk forward, that's all. You can also kill some of them. But it's very, very simple. There's not much to deal with in this area. It's just levers pretty much. Very simple. I'd recommend killing these blobs just to get them out of the way. It does kind of fuck up the control when you're on the slope and try to jump, so just be wary of that. I did hit jump, but it just slid off for whatever reason. It's a little janky, but it's very easy. Luckily, you don't die from that. You just got to go back up. It's just tedious. See what I mean? You start fucking sliding and shit. I think I fucked that up a few times. You expect it to respond, but it just, for some reason, diagonals fuck up the control. So I recommend just inch your way down the slope and then jump. It's easier to do it that way. So now you do have some enemies here, but if you take your time, it's very, very easy. There's not really a lot of urgency to move fast and try to run through that shit. The caterpillars can be a little bit dangerous with that projectile if you get hit by the first one, but mainly because there's two of them, it makes it a little dangerous, but it's easy. The red ones only take one hit, so those are easy. So here's your next checkpoint. So yeah, just kind of creep slowly, duck and strike, and just try to remove the enemies. I mean, I didn't really need to take that much damage, but it was apparently good enough. So yeah, a lot of times it is better to jump that first projectile from the caterpillar, and then you can get in those 3 hits and kill it right away. I find dodging the first attack of it does make it easier to take out without taking damage. Though I usually won't try to dodge it a second time. I'll usually dodge the first projectile and then just try to take it out. And that usually works. So you get some bullshit information here, which is pretty much useless. You can't go in that up that ladder yet, so you're just going to go to the right and drop down, and you'll have a very easy boss fight. It's several phases. You actually get a checkpoint right before the boss, as usual. So all you do here is jump and strike the boss, and then duck to take out the caterpillar. So that's it. Jump up and do a few strikes. The caterpillar will fall, and then just take it out with a crouch strike. First phase is extremely easy. You may have some that eventually come from the other side, but by that time, you're mostly going to be done. And you don't even have to walk to the right to take them out. You can just pivot while you're crouched. You can pivot in either direction and chop that way. So it's very easy. They get slightly trickier, but it never gets difficult. Most of the bosses are a joke. The final boss is a little challenging. So you can also use magic on these at any time. If you want to take one out fast, you can spam it with magic. Though, I mean, that one I think is really easy to take out without magic anyway, so you may want to save your magic for one of the trickier ones. But none of them do get that difficult. But if you want, you could be conservative and use it on one that gives you more trouble. I did beat this on my first try, this boss, so I didn't know, I had no idea what was coming up. Same thing here, you just jump and strike this thing, and you want to take out the caterpillars, but it's a little trickier since these ones fire projectiles. So you may want to wait and dodge their projectile. First, you want to be safe and play it safe without taking any damage. You could do that. I wasn't too concerned about it. I figured I could, get through it easily enough. And that's the last form, so that's it. So you may want to save your magic for the last form, actually. That probably would make it even easier if you wanted to. But I don't think most players are going to have too much trouble with that. It's really simple. Right, so now you get some shit. Oh, yeah, this allows you to swim. But it's really just a little, cinematic thing because, I mean, it's just a swimming level. You never use that headgear again in the game. So, yeah, I'm trying to remember now where the fuck you go. Probably to the left. Maybe I had to talk to that guy again. I don't actually remember. Oh, yeah, I think that's all it was. Yeah, so now you're into a swimming scene, and it's the only swimming scene in the game, but it does change up the gameplay. There's basically 3 areas that change up the gameplay. There's a swimming area, a shooter stage where you're a dragon, and you have that flying stage that we already beat. So this is one of the more irritating stages, but it's not actually difficult. It's just a little bit irritating because the swimming control is not great. When you press the button to swim, you make a really large movement, which is kind of irritating. You know, you can't do these little miniature movements like you can in a lot of games. It's like a very big, exaggerated movement. So that makes it a little bit more irritating. But aside from that, it's easy. You just have to be patient. Luckily, your attack has a long range. It's not some little chalk stick or some shit like some games give you. So, I mean, that part is good enough. It's just that the swimming... You know, when you tap the button to swim, you just make a pretty exaggerated movement. So you want to watch out for the electricity. You can also stab those things when they're not electrified and take them out if you want. But you don't really have to take those ones out. There are some that are better to take out. But see, I was moving a little too close to the electricity, so I did take some damage. So you got to be careful with that. But you get a decent amount of health, as I said. The spikes, though, may kill you in one hit. I don't remember. I think I think they do, because I remember dying on the spikes. Pretty sure they're a one-hit kill. So it's always better to take damage from a jellyfish or a regular fish than touch the spikes. So just keep that in mind. Now, with this part, it's very easy if you just wait till your stomach touches that blue little horizon where the colors transition. That dark blue transitions to a light blue in the middle. As soon as your stomach touches that dark blue little line where they separate, just press the button and you should be able to swim through those spikes with no problem. That's pretty much the perfect place to press the button, since you have such an exaggerated movement. So here, just take your time. Try to clear out some of the fish before you try to move forward and take out the jellyfish. You can even rest in this little nook right here, but the fish decided to leave for some reason by that point. I guess they got fucking bored with waiting for me to go down there. Take out this jellyfish when it's not electrified. And you can't really miss the enemies here, so, you know, just strike when they're within range. Very easy. Now the part coming up makes you collect 6 gems, and it's a little bit maze-like, but it's a very simple maze. If you follow my general instructions, you won't even need to watch where I go. You just got to follow some general tips, and that'll get you through the area. It's kind of a throwback to Turtles, the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game on NES, where you had to defuse bombs in a swimming sequence. A little bit like that, but it's very easy. So what they're basically telling you here is that you need 6 gems to open up this gate at the top. So you see where I edited right there because I did die on this. So now we're going to go up here. You know, just take a left and go up first. And that's going to be where you're going to find your first gem. So that's the gate. You don't need to go there yet. So don't go down where those fish are, because obviously you can see there's no gem in there, so you don't need to go in there. You just need to get the 6 gems. There are a few dead ends, but aside from a few dead ends, it's very simple. So if you see that there's no gem in one of these little alcoves, don't even bother going in there. You know, try to get a line of sight on the area, you know, ahead of time if you can, and that'll save you the trouble of like going into a dead end. So now the general tip that I'm going to give is to go into every opening that appears as you're going straight through that top hallway. So this is the first opening that appears. So go down in here, and I believe you're going to see a gem here on the right. Maybe not. So you don't even need to go this way. Don't even bother with this path. But generally, just remember, whenever you see a new opening, just go in it. There's going to be a gem somewhere in there. So, as I said, this was the first opening that appeared down that top corridor. So you go down in there, you make a left. Don't bother with the right path. Just make a left and get that. And as long as you mash the swimming button when you're above those spikes, you're not going to hit into the spikes. So, very easy. So now we're going to continue right, and as soon as the next opening appears, which now is on the top, we're going to take that top opening. And that's it. That's basically what you're going to do for this entire segment, is whenever there's a new opening, you're going to explore it. And you really can't miss the gems as long as you do that. So now we have our third. As I said, very simple maze. It's just a little bit irritating because the controls are not great. Though I don't think I had many deaths here. Maybe one or maybe two. I'm not sure. But it wasn't many. So again, we have another opening that's just appeared. So we're going to go up and explore this new opening. And like I said, as long as you explore each new opening that appears along that right corridor, you're going to get the gems. So now I can't confirm if there's a gem in this path, because I didn't know. Yeah, I guess there is one. So you want to take this right path once you're in here. I know I took a few dead ends, but, you just turn back. So we only need 2 more gems, then we're going to return to that main corridor that we've been traveling right along to find all these openings. We're going to go back there and just go left. Now, I don't know if there's a gem in here. I wasn't able to see it. I probably should have went down first and checked. I think this might be a dead end, though I don't remember. I just remember that I took a few dead ends. I think this is a dead end, if I remember right. Yeah, this is a dead end. So I could have just swam on the bottom of that area and probably saw that there was no gem in there. I think you can see it from there. So you can pretty much see it. You can't see the full area, but you get a general idea. I probably could have skipped it. I just wanted to make sure, I don't want to miss it and then wonder where the fuck I missed it. There's also another opening below those spikes that I just swam past. I don't know if there was a gem in there, but we'll see. Maybe I already explored that. There's definitely one down here, so get this one. And then there's only going to be one more left. And it may actually be down here. Yeah, there it is. So I missed that one initially, but very easy to get. So now you just return to the corridor and you're just going to swim back left the way you came and ignore all the openings. Just swim straight to the left. And that's pretty much it. Once you get all the way to the left, you're going to see your checkpoint, which you cannot activate checkpoints again, but all you got to do from that point is swim straight up after you pass the checkpoint and the mermaid. See right where the statue is. You just go straight up and you will automatically open that gate. Still kind of a cool level, just simple, not very exciting gameplay-wise, but it's cool. I mean, I like when they switch up the gameplay a little bit. Though it's not as good as the regular side-scrolling levels, and I'm not really into like little collections. I don't like anything really with collecting and mazes and shit like that. It's just not my thing. It's 2 things that I don't like. That's why I didn't really like the N64 overall. Most of the games were, collect-a-thon type of games, and it wasn't my type of thing. But this is very light, very, very easy. So it didn't really fall into that category too much. So yeah, I think this stage has some pretty tricky combat and some pretty long checkpoints, if I remember right. But you're going to want to take out the enemies that are in your way. Don't go in the river, obviously. It's some toxic bullshit going on. You can or cannot take out these aliens if you want. It depends if you want to take them out. They can get in your way, though, the jumping aliens. These guys, you got to hit them with headshots. You may want to do some jumping magic shots to take them out sooner, because they can corner you, as you see. But if you do get hit by them, just use your invincibility frames after taking damage. You have a moment of invincibility where you're flashing. Use that to walk through an enemy. And, that applies to any point of the game where you take damage. You can try to skip enemies that way. Though, I wouldn't recommend purposely taking damage most of the time. But when it happens, sometimes you can just keep going. These guys are super easy. Like, they'll usually jump over you, and then you can strike them if you want. But you really don't have to bother with them, because they're not going to chase you or follow you. I thought they might, so that's why I was taking them out, but they won't follow you. So they just kind of stay in a general area. It might be safer to crouch and take out those running aliens that have their arms outstretched just because they have a little bit of a arm reaching out that might hit you, but they're easy. You can just stand and hit them. So yeah, I used a little magic here to speed it up because they can corner you, those tall things that you have to hit in the head. As long as you take your time and just take out the enemies, you may want to use some magic to take out enemies quickly. But as long as you keep moving forward, and just kind of taking out the enemies carefully, it's pretty damn easy. Even if you take a little damage, it's not a big deal. So here I used my magic pretty much immediately. I did a sword strike followed up by magic like immediately and took it out. So it's probably a good place to use the magic since you're going to get a checkpoint soon anyway. It's not like you have to be super conservative with your magic. But you can't just spam it on everything, otherwise it won't last very long. You only get like maybe 5 uses or something like that. So there's a checkpoint up here. Though I think you may have to take that out first and go up this ladder to get to it. So yeah, you can pretty much just drop down and get the checkpoint. You get your life and shit back anyway, so no big deal. So now you can just go under these guys. You don't have to waste your time fighting these guys. Just pay attention to the crushers. If you take one hit, it's not going to be a big deal. That one part I like to just take the damage and run through. It's pretty much intentional because I just didn't want to try to fiddle around with them. But very easy to time those crushers. And there's a checkpoint right here. Just don't get killed by this thing like I did. If you're too sloppy, all you got to do is go up there, crouch, and then make your jump across. This boss can be tricky, but if you're super aggressive, you don't even have to worry about dodging him. That's what I did. So my strat was to just keep swinging on him and throwing out my magic. And I pretty much exchanged damage with him. I mean, it was down pretty low to the wire, but it wasn't down to the last bit of health. So as long as you're aggressive, throw out your magic as you're striking him and just keep following him. And just be aggressive. You have a checkpoint right before that boss. So unless you're trying for a no-death run, that strategy is fine. You will break through if you do that. So these spear guys are very simple. When they're facing the wrong way is when you strike them. So you just wait for them to turn and then strike them. And you have flying enemies. Again, the difficulty does ratchet up a little bit here from the previous stage. This may be one of the harder areas, if I remember right. So these serpents can be a little tricky because they will do this laser attack that damages you a lot. I usually waste my magic on them by striking them and throwing out magic at the same time. And you see I use the shoulder charge, which wasn't really necessary, but you can use it. You do acquire the shoulder charge after beating that boss, I believe. Which is, I believe you hit probably B if you're on Xbox. But it's a decent little attack. It's not great, but you can ram through some shit with it. But you don't get invincibility when you use your shoulder charge, so it's not super useful. But it does decent damage. You can use it on bosses to do a little extra damage, though. So here, just move carefully and try to time it so you can go past these little projectiles. It's a little tricky. You can see it does get more aggressive by this point in the game. It is getting more challenging. So you get another checkpoint up here. It's mostly going to be learning the areas by practicing and dying, like with these kind of games. It's not super useful to try to explain step by step. I usually don't try to do that in my tutorials because I feel like having the general knowledge and information on how to approach a part, is a lot more useful than trying to explain step by step, which you can clearly see me doing on screen. So it's kind of redundant to go over every little movement that I'm doing. So here you're going to run through fast and just jump on the platforms. You just got to keep moving because the platforms do, they go out from under you. But now you get a hourglass, which lets you do infinite shoulder charges. So you're going to use those shoulder charges for some of the platforms as you see me using them. For these serpents, again, I believe you can only damage them when that red thing in their chest appears. But I don't really wait for it. I just spam magic as I'm swinging my sword, and that's usually good enough. Sometimes I do take more damage than I want. But again, I'm not trying to do a no-death run, so if I die occasionally on them, it's not a big deal. Just keep moving to the right here. Ignore that guy with the throwing shit at you. The flying guy. And for these ladders, anytime you see these ladders, you can't jump off the ladders, but what you can do is just go up high on them and just hold right. And you'll catch them automatically, I believe, as you fall to the next ladder. Just make sure you're holding up as well, just to be doubly sure that you grab onto the ladders when you transition. I don't know if you need to do that, but I did it as a precaution because, normally that's what you would do in these kind of games. So, yeah, I just took the damage there sloppily, but for this part, maybe try to take your time and dodge some of the flames and then move. It's a little tricky to not get hit, but you can try to play carefully. I ended up taking a lot of damage here, but luckily I had enough health to bust through. So here you get your checkpoint and you get a full replenishment of magic and health. Now you have a very easy boss. I think I might have beat it on like the second try. All I do is jump and throw out my magic aggressively. Jump, strike, throw out my magic. I threw in a little shoulder charge just for the fuck of it. A jumping shoulder charge attack, which did decent damage. But it's not invincible either, so I may have absorbed some damage. But it's easy to just exchange damage with that guy. So now we get a pretty cool little throwback to Dragon Spirit, which is a pretty cool series. And the NES version is pretty good as well. I did a playthrough of that on a tutorial of that game on the channel, so you can check that out. But yeah, it's very, very easy shooter stage. I don't think I got hit at all until the very, very end. But I believe I took like no damage because it was just super easy, especially if you play shooters. But of course, you have a big hitbox and your character does move very slow, but there's really not a lot to be concerned with either. So whenever you see these triple shots, try to get in the gaps, obviously. And take out the enemies, as you can, but don't be overly concerned with wiping out all the enemies. It doesn't matter really because you're going to keep scrolling until you beat it. It's just an auto scroller. And there's no boss or anything. There might be 2 enemies that you got to take out at the top, but I don't even know if you have to take them out. But it's pretty much just scrolls to the top and then you're on the next stage. So all you got to do is really just survive. And take out the shit that's in your way. Don't worry too much about trying to clean everything up. But it's a cool little stage. So I believe for the rest of the game, I only had about 12 more deaths, so there really was nothing mind-blowing. You know what I mean? I think next is the last stage, and the last stage is actually one of the easiest stages because you just fight the bosses again mainly. There's a little bit of fighting regular enemies, but it's mainly just fighting bosses you already beat. I don't think all the bosses get recycled again, but you do fight some of them again. And then you'll fight the final boss, which is the trickiest part, but there's a good strat for that. So yeah, now this is nearing the end of the stage by now. I believe this is the final part with these 2 things. I think I took 1 hit here, or 2. But that's it. You take those things out, and then you will proceed to the final stage, I believe. It is cool how you get into the final stage. You ride the dragon that you just killed as a boss. That was pretty cool. So now it's mainly going to be a boss gauntlet. I think there's some new bosses as well. Well, actually, no. I don't think this is the final stage. I think first you have to fight this thing. All you got to do for this though is just crouch and strike it, and just take the hits. Just get up to it and crouch strike it. If you do that aggressively, you'll beat it without any skill, without any dodging or anything like that. That's usually how I try to beat bosses in these kind of games. Is super aggressive, and then if that doesn't work, I'll change the strat. So yeah, that was the end of that stage. Now next, I believe, is the final stage. Actually, yeah, I guess there is a few challenging parts. I think some of these parts are the most challenging now that I remember. with the ninjas and various enemies. Some of the checkpoints are a little lengthy, so you do have to go through that first. With this Minotaur, I recommend using magic because it can knock down ceiling tiles, which can be a little tricky, so it's better to take it out fast than fighting it with the sword only. The ninjas, it's good to get them to attack and then dodge it and then counter them and kill them. It's not good to try to bum rush them because they'll usually get you with a Chinese star if you try to rush them. So let them fire first. It gives you a moment. There's always a brief delay between when enemies fire, so let them fire first, and it'll give you enough time to get in there and take them out. I found jump strikes to be a useful way to deal with the tall enemies here and the other enemies that are in the air. So I usually just jump strike my way through for these areas. So now we got the magic ointment, which lets you use magic unlimited until it runs out. So all you want to do is use your magic attacks. You can spam them here because they won't run out. You need to use them to take out the ghosts, but you only need to take out the ghosts that are directly in your way. So don't worry about taking them all out. And they won't follow you up the ladder. So once you get up the ladder, you're good, but you do have to avoid the spears. So just wait for the spears to come out and then make your movement up. So now we have another magic ointment, which will give you unlimited magic. So you really only need to take the ones out that are directly in your way. And now we have another little spear area where you got to dodge some spears. Pretty much the same shit. Now this one adds some platforming with the ghosts, so it's a little trickier. You just want to make sure you have a clear path before you make your jumps. Again, there is no knockback damage, so you're not going to get knocked back if you do take damage, but you still don't want to take too much damage because it adds up. I believe the checkpoint's coming up soon. Yeah, here it is. So for this part, I found, again, jump striking to be really effective for whatever reason. I kind of just ended up jump striking my way through these areas. And I found that worked pretty well for me. I wasn't taking a ton of damage doing that. You may want to crouch and take out the occasional wolf with a low shot, but you can kind of just jump over the wolves a lot of times and just keep jump striking, as you see me doing. I did take a hit from the ninja, but not too bad. Took some damage from the wolves. It does get a little dense here, so you may absorb a few shots. But you may want to throw out some magic to take out the ninjas occasionally, like I did. The magic pretty much goes across the screen as far as I can tell, so it has a lot of range. So this guy is easy. Just let him do his attack and just run to the other direction, basically. And get in maybe 3 or 4 hits and then retreat. And I use my magic while striking and just waste up all my magic, just to get some extra damage. But you don't have to do that. It's very easy to survive this fight for as long as you need to. You just lure him to attack and move in the opposite direction. And whenever he's on the ground, you go in for about 3 or 4 strikes. And as long as you keep moving, it will kind of confuse the boss and he won't home into where you're at. So as long as you keep moving, back and forth, you probably won't even get hit. The only way to really take damage is if you get sloppy and try to get in too many hits on the boss. Then he'll probably get a hit in on you, because he takes a while to strike. But if you fuck around too much and try to get too greedy, like I did initially, then you'll take damage. I think I might have died on that guy once. So I believe now is actually the final stage. I was mistaken. I was thinking that next was the final stage, but I think this might be it. I don't think there's much actual combat in this stage from what I remember. Maybe a little bit. You will have some ninjas and some traps and things like that, but it's pretty simple. You got these guys. You really don't have to get greedy like that and go all out on them, but I will show how to fight them better a little bit later without taking any damage. So here's a checkpoint. And I believe this is the first of the recycled bosses, yeah. So this is definitely the final stage. So yeah, now you will have to fight the same bosses again. So the strategy is exactly the same. And I believe you get a checkpoint right after defeating these things too. So, after every little boss fight you do, you get another checkpoint. So you don't have to beat all the bosses in a row or anything like that. But yeah, it's the same exact fight. I think the fight against the plant boss may be a little bit changed up, but this one I think is exactly the same. So there's really nothing to that. So now you get another checkpoint. Now you may have some brief combat scenarios between some of the boss fights, but nothing is going to be as hard as some of the areas that you've already beaten. I remember this being pretty easy. It seems like I only had maybe like 2 more deaths for the rest of the game, so there really wasn't anything crazy. So now we have our next boss already, very short. Well, actually, no. Now there's a brief scene here. I don't remember this being hard. They just run down the steps. Take out the first wave of bats and just run down the stairs. I like using magic on those guys just to take them down these serpents. Because they can be a pain in the ass. They take a lot of shots. I will show a better way to fight these rock-throwing lion enemies. Yeah, so for these guys, after you dodge the first boulder, just stand right up to the edge and the rock will go over you. They can't even hurt you if you do this. And when they're done throwing their weapon, just jump and get in 2 or 3 strikes. And that's it. Very easy. Just do that for all of them. You got to dodge that first initial rock. Wait for the rocks to clear and then get in there. For this guy, you can do the same thing, but you have to go back down. You walk up there, do a few strikes, and walk back down. You have enough time to do that. You don't need to take damage if you don't want to. So now another checkpoint. And this is the plant boss again. I just use my magic initially. You really don't need to. You can see how to fight it without. You just jump forward a little bit and back. You want to kind of be holding back as you jump out so that you will fall back down to the platform. So you just jump out a little bit to get the hit in. It's very easy. The magic does speed it up a little bit. I don't think this plant has multiple forms like the first time you fight it, but I don't remember exactly. I just remember it being very easy. And of course, if you get a checkpoint after this, you'll get all your magic back anyway, so there's not really any reason to save it up. The boss design is kind of shitty here. I mean, there's really no reason to even engage with the worms on the bottom. So it's kind of just a pointless fight. There's really no challenge, just waiting for spikes and striking. Pretty shitty boss, but very easy. So now you have a brief little combat scenario again. It's going to be the same enemies, though, we've been dealing with, so it's going to be the same strategies for these guys. Just go to the edge and then come up and get a few strikes in. For these things, you just crouch to take them out. So as with the ninjas, like I said, you may want to lure them to attack and then strike. You got those spear guys, which are very easy to take out if you're quick, and you take them out when they're facing the wrong direction. So yeah, next, this may be the final boss. Yeah, this is the final boss. So this is actually not that hard, but it does take a lot of hits, and it is the trickiest part of the game. So all you got to do here is stand in the middle where you spawn at, and just basically pivot left and right to strike these blue lion faces, and then strike the eyes when they come down to you. So that's all you got to do. Taking out the lion faces will trigger the eyes to come back down. I think sometimes you have to take out like maybe 2 of them to make it come down, but that seems to be what triggers them. But you can try to jump and strike the lion faces to take them out sooner, but I find that more dangerous. I just played it safe. I just move left and right and strike left and right, basically. And I do that for the eyes as well. I pretty much do that for the whole fight. Just pivot left and right. So as long as you're paying attention, you should be able to take them out as they appear. It does get faster as you get farther into the boss's health bar, and it does take a lot of hits, but it's actually really easy. Keep in mind that the eyes don't hurt you when they come down towards you. That's your opportunity to strike them, but they won't damage you. So you really only have to focus on taking out those lion heads. And it's always a priority to strike a lion head over trying to strike the eyes and get the hit in. If you get too greedy with that, you may get hit trying to strike the eyes instead of focusing on the lion head. That should be the main priority. But as long as you do that, it's pretty easy. You can see it takes a little while, though. Sometimes you will have to strike one to the left and then move quickly to the right and strike on the other side, and vice versa. Because it does get fast towards the end, so you may need to be, have to be pretty precise near the end. But you can take a decent amount of damage. It's just that the boss can take a lot more damage than you, so you don't want to be too sloppy. I believe I got this fight on my second try. I think I died once. I died once that I checked the video to see exactly what needed to be done, and I was able to beat it on my first try after watching the video. Yeah, so one more hit, and that's it. Not too bad. I mean, in the game, really, it shouldn't be too difficult, especially with this tutorial breaking down some of the strategies and stuff. I think that'll make it even easier. I will be posting up a review soon, so stay tuned for that. If you have any questions, let me know, and thanks for watching.